So, Brad, I want to talk to you today about the Pokemon theme song. You got a minute for the Pokemon theme song?
I've always got a minute for the Pokemon theme song.
So I realized, because Pokemon is very big in my house at the moment, and this song gets sung a lot, or the theme song gets heard a lot, and so it's bouncing around my head.
Yeah.
And I realized that there is a secondary message embedded in the Pokemon theme song. And I'm not sure if it's the theme song writer or if it is Ash Ketchum himself. Who has this almost subliminal. Yes, I can speak. Subliminal. See, I did it again! Subliminal message.
All right, Erica, don't step in. He's got to learn it himself.
I have been hoisted by my own petard. All right. So anyway, there's like this secret sound. And so can I read? Can I read the lyrics to you?
Yes, I want you to sing the lyrics to me. Are you reading? No.
You tell me when you spot the moment where it sounds like Ash Ketchum is sure he's ready to fight Pokemon, but also he's desperate to have a pal, okay?
Okay, I'm ready for this.
Okay, here we go. I'm not going to sing it, but I'll do the first line so you remember it. I want to be the very best, right? Okay, so here we go.
Okay.
I want to be the very best like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test. To train them is my cause, right? Like, this is the primary thing in Ash Ketchum's life.
Yeah, this is a big, swelling moment.
Yeah, he's ready to go, you know? So I will travel across the land, Brad, searching far and wide, teaching Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. All right, so we're still focused on being a Pokemon master. All right, so here we go, into the chorus. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. It's you and me. I know it's my destiny. Pokemon, oh, you're my best friend in a world we must defend. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. A heart so true. Our Pokemon will pull us through. You teach me and I'll teach you. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. So every challenge along the way with courage I will face. I will battle every day to claim my rightful place. Come with me, the time is right. There's no better team. Arm in arm will win the fight.
Arm in arm will win the fight. That's
It's
beautiful.
so funny once you realize this, that the Pokemon theme song is like, ostensibly, it's all about like, hey, Brad, let's go Pokemon battle. We're going to fight these Pokemon. We're going to win it. And then it's also like, hey, you seem really nice. You want to hang out a little bit? I'm kind of lonely here in the Alola lands here in Pokemon land.
It's like if you would have done a mashup between the Battle Hymn of the Republic and Stuart Smiley singing I'm good enough, I'm okay enough, and people doggone it, they like me.
Oh my God, it's just so funny when you I want everybody to listen to it again. Like, go ahead and YouTube, play it again, and like listen to like the striking tones of like, yeah, we're Pokemon battling. And then realize in the background is also a desperate cry for help from Ash Ketchum, who just wants a friend. He's like, dear God, can we go to Pizza Hut and just hang out for a little bit?
I just want to drink out of the red plastic glasses, just for a little while. Come on.
I am so lonely. Please invite me to your birthday party. I just want a pal.
My mom buys good gifts. That's what I always told people in fourth grade. I'm sure you're having a birthday soon. I just want you to know my mom gives good gifts.
Can you please come over and play Sega Genesis with me? I just want a friend.
Just one time, just for a little while. Listen, nobody's got to know. Nobody's got to know you're coming out the house.
We won't tell anybody at school. Just come for a sleepover. We're going to have such fun.
I've got the Godzilla that shoots his fist. It's going to be a fantastic
I've got
time.
Legos out the yin-yang. Mom and Dad, because I'm an only kid, I've got so many Legos. Please be my friend. I don't have a sibling.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, on that note, I'm going to say hello, everybody, and welcome to ComicLab, the show about fighting Pokemon, about friendship, and about making comics.
And about making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc.
And in what I can only describe as a desperate hope, I'm his friend, Dave Kellett, the cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and the co-director of Stripped.
Wait and see. It's going to be a long show. And this week's hour of comics advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. So there's a pretty exciting thing that we're doing for ComicLab this week that is both fun for everybody and also an instructive thing that Brad and I are trying for the first time. And that is we are running a quick starter. That's right, quick starter, not a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
These are short Kickstarters that are designed to do a very simple, quick, fun little project without, it's not earth-shattering, it's not earth-moving, but
There's
it's a
nothing
fun
earth
little thing.
about it.
Exactly. It's a fun little thing to do. And in this case, Brad, do you want to tell everybody what we're quick starting as a podcast?
We've been talking about this a lot on the show, and I guess the best way to say this, the best way to line this up is that, comics artists are a community. We're a village. I like to think, when I think of comics artists, I like to think of all of us standing out, holding hands across the entire planet. If you really want to get down to it, people that are supporting each other, people that are pulling for each other.
Who have a shared love of the art form,
yes,
where the money doesn't matter.
No,
the business aspect of it matters.
No, it's not about that. You know what it's about, Dave?
What it's about?
It's about family.
It's about family.
It's about the family that you develop, that those bonds
and that's why
heart.
We've established a very specific and helpful URL to show that this is about friendship and about making pals and working together as a community. And that URL is ComicLabCashGrab.com.
That's right.
ComicLabCashGrab.com.
This is your opportunity to be involved in the Comic Lab Cash Grab. Now listen, we've got something that we think you're going to be really excited about. And what it is we know that one of the things that you're having trouble with is that you, like some of us here on the show, keep forgetting what the 4 C's of social media is.
That's right. That's right.
And so we've developed, using only the latest technology, a magnet that you can put up in your studio to remind you what the 4 C's of social media are.
And I don't want to say that it's like a groundbreaking magnetic technology, but it's groundbreaking magnetic technology. Like this is this is the top form of magnetics that are being used today in the industry.
Yeah.
And so what it is Dr. Geiger's 4 C's of social media. Now, if you remember, this is an often discussed topic on this show because Brad can never remember what the damn 4 C's of social media are. Like, I think at one point he made one of the 4 C's cremation, which is to burn a dead body, was one of them.
That is true. I was under a lot of pressure that day. Dave's assistant Beth did a beautiful woodcut looking
kind
portrait.
of Victorian Edwardian looking woodcut thing.
Yeah, like if somebody rolled up selling you snake oil, this would be painted on the side of their wagon. Dr. Geiger's 4 C's of social media. And of course, it reminds you what those 4 C's are: creation, curation, commercial, and of course, kindness. The 4 C's of social media.
And now, just as a reminder, because we want this to be about friendship and community, you can find this over at ComicLabCashGrab.com.
Absolutely. That's right, because we're all in this together.
That's right.
But some of us need to give some others of us some money this week. So
my God.
It is a magnet that you can get. Now we've made this real easy. It's
I know. Hold on, Brad. I have to comment on this because I'm literally turning red in the face. Brad pitched this URL yesterday, and it is delighting me to no end that the inside joke is that the damn URL is just called ComicLabCashGrab.com.
Well, we wanted something that people could easily remember. People can easily remember rhyming schemes. Comic Lab Cash Grab. This is
Oh my God. But then as soon as Brad pitched it, Brad goes, because it's about community and friendship and love. That's why we're using ComicLabCashGrab.com.
So basically, you want the truth, here's the truth. We want to do these magnets. We've got them set up at a $7 reward on our quick starter. That's just going to go for 2 weeks.
Yep.
We've thrown in those enamel pins. If you didn't get an enamel pin during the last, what was it, a special offer we did those
for Patreon, yeah. And that's 2 of those enamel pins. You can get the very beautiful one that says, "Ask me about my so-so art," which is delightful at comics conventions especially. And then the Comic Lab pin, which is delightful because it shows the rest of the world that you are a fellow Comic Labber when you see folks at Comic Cons.
That's right.
Or at cartooning meetups. And so you can either get the magnet for $7, the enamel pins for $20, or the magnet and the enamel pins for $25, all over at ComicLabCashGrab.com. God, it still makes me laugh.
Comic Lab Cash Grab. Amazingly enough, that domain was still available. We snuck that one in under the wire.
I feel like, though, the listenership of Comic Lab gets it, like they get it in terms of like having a damn URL that says ComicLabCashGrab.com.
This is Dave's guilt coming out. What Dave's saying?
Absolutely.
Oh, I hope you get it. I really, I don't want you to think this is a cash grab. Listen. Like, I just want to have one of these magnets for myself. So that means you guys got to pitch in.
I do too, because it will, honest to God, it will make the show better. I will hang it up in my podcasting closet over here on this metal surface, and then we will eternally know that it's not cremation is not one of the 4 C's of social media.
And always that 4th C is kindness. You've got to remember that forever is you got kindness right there.
And listen, because 2 people have asked for them in the last 6 months as a super high tier on this quick starter just for funsies, and it's kind of awesome. We also have a level where you can get a video recording for birthdays, wedding anniversaries, friendship, studio launches, bar mitzvahs, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And so far we've done 2 of them. They've been really fun, and you can see an example of one of them on the website. So
we'll get on video, Dave and I, and we will do a greeting for whatever your situation is, and we're delightful. We're absolutely delightful.
The magnets, the pins, the magnets and pins, or the video greeting, all over at ComicLabCashGrab.com. Check it out. And Brad, let's jump right into our first question for the week.
Absolutely.
Having left ComicLabCashGrab.com in our rear view mirror. Here we go. Hello, Brad and Dave. I'm thinking about the title and the domain name for my new webcomic. It should be easy to understand and memorize, and also be available as a .com domain. Absolutely. After discarding ideas revolving around word plays that might create ambiguity, I came to highly appreciate Dave's solution, SheldonComics.com. Using comics as a compound also makes it more likely that the name is still available as a social media handle. Another approach I considered was using a 3-word title. Think of something like Pride and Prejudice. But I was wondering whether the domain name in this made-up example should be prideandprejudice.com or prideprejudice.com, papcomic.com, pride_comic.com, whatever there's obviously 19 different versions you can do there. So here are my questions. Brad and Dave, what do you consider to be the best practices for choosing a domain name of a humor strip? 2, Dave, why did you decide to use the plural instead of the singular, but no hyphen for SheldonComics.com? And Brad, why did you choose to use a hyphen for evil-comic.com? So thanks to you both for inspiring critical thinking about webcomics as an art, as a business. And thank you for sharing your learning and experience on the podcast and over at ComicLabCashGrab.com. Well, that's nice of them to already know that we were doing that, by the way.
Absolutely. Well, listen, there's a lot of things that you've got to take into account here when you're looking at a domain name, and the bottom line is there's a lot less pressure than ever before than it used to be back in the day. This was something that was really, really important because it had to be as short as possible, and it had to have a .com.
Yes.
In the early 2000s, that was it. Now that the web has exploded, you've got what Dave always refers to as, the theater of the possible. And it's impossible to have that. So you have a lot of comics that are coming out with a domain that says like, fluffythedogcomic.com, because already fluffythedog.com has been taken for any number of reasons. And fluffy.com, was gobbled right up a long time ago. So you're seeing URLs get longer. You're seeing URLs that start to break the rule of having a .com as people use some of those other
.radio,
suffixes.
.biz, whatever it is.
Yeah, and you can get quite creative for that, especially if you can spell out your name with one of those suffixes. That's a way to be creative.
Yeah.
And also this. Although it's something that you definitely want to keep in mind, and you don't want to get too squirrely with it, URLs anymore are such a kind of plug and play thing that you can count on somebody. Not, you don't have to, as much as you used to, have somebody say, oh, I need to be able to remember, MickeyMouse.com. Now it's since we're so digital, it's really a case of somebody, pointing on it, clicking, and add it to a bookmark or add it to, put it on their RSS feed. There's 100 different ways. Chances are they're going to see it on social media and just click. Now they're following you on social media and they're doing that. So first step is not to stress out too much about it and to give yourself a little leeway. Second step is you need to remember, even though everything I just said, you do need to be a little bit smart. And the one that always gets me is hidden words, right? Originally, this show was going to be called ComicLab. But when we put it together for a URL, it said ComicLab. And I didn't like the word slab in our title.
Nothing says morgue like the word slab, so that's great.
And it's too close to slob, which I'm always hearing, in my daily life. So I didn't like it. And there's lots and lots of examples. One of the ones that I absolutely love. There was an IT company that offered hardware scrap. They were basically reselling scrap hardware, and it was IT Scrap, which is a great name, right? It's IT Scrap. But when you went to the URL, it said it's crap.
Oh my God. That's like when, I don't know, Brad, do you know the story about the Chevy Nova when it came out in the 70s?
Yes.
So in terms of unintended consequences, so Nova in Spanish means it doesn't run, it doesn't go.
Yep.
So they tried to sell the Chevy Nova in Mexico, and people were like, well, what the hell? I'm not buying that car. Why would I buy that car?
Buy our new car. It doesn't go.
So I love the idea that IT Scrap, it's crap. That's amazing. Oh God.
Now there's a lot of different ways to do this, and like the question asker pointed out, you and I kind of have two different minds because you don't use hyphens in any of your URLs.
I don't. No.
I have zero problems using a hyphen because it's easy to say. It's like I said, chances are you're going to click it instead of type it into a browser. I've got no problems using. In fact, I use lots of hyphens. You don't like hyphens. Talk about that.
Okay, I'll talk. Well, first, I want to acknowledge that Brad's probably right that 99% of our advice is only applicable. Or sorry, I should say the advice that I would give you for the specificity of making it typable or memorable or easy to think of is only applicable for 1% of the people that will ever put your URL in. I think Brad is right. For the most part, people are going to find this by clicking on the actual link. They're going to find it on social media. They're going to find it on somebody else sharing it. They're going to click it and go, right? So again, most of this advice that I'm about to give you is only for 1% of the people that will actually physically type it in, right? It's far less than it was in 1999 or 2003 where everybody had to find every website on their own. So you had to get a website like pets.com and it could sell for an unbelievable amount of money because that URL was so valuable. But having said all that, all the caveats, I do think brevity is always key, both because your readers are far more likely to have success typing it in if it is a short URL versus Brad is a big hunk and everybody loves him.com.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of chances for a typo there or that kind of thing.
There's a lot of mistakes you can make there.
Right. So you just want bradstud.com.
Yeah.
Although that also is a found word, and it could also be read as bradstud.com. So even though you're intending to say Brad Stud, you're getting Brad's Tud, which sounds terrible. Anyway, so brevity is important. I think also you want to make sure that you don't get or accidentally fall into cleverness around English language and potential misspellings. For example, leet speak, for those of us old enough to remember it, don't replace an E with the number 4 or something. And no one's going to remember that. It's going to. So for the 1% that do go to type it, they'll type it in wrong. As far as the hyphens, it's one of the few things personally, and I've actually never told you this, I personally think the hyphen was a tremendous mistake, and I would not have done it with Evil Ink. I think it adds confusion. I think there's a percentage of people that always misremember what is a dash, what is an underscore, what is a hyphen. And so or a backslash for that matter. And so when you say evil-comic.com, people get to hyphen and they mentally have to go, okay, wait a minute. It's not the dash. It's not an underscore. It's not a backslash. Okay, so it's the one in the middle of the line, right? It's the one that's like a horizontal, like H level. Okay, all right. Yeah, I know which one that is. And that's not everybody. I'm not saying everybody's dumb, but I'm saying like, one thing that Brad said to me recently. He goes, think about the average person. The average person is pretty stupid. Now, to get to the average, that means 50% of people are dumber than that. And so when you ask them to remember what a hyphen is, you got to remember there's some good, delightful fans that you will have that are pretty dumb, and they might not remember how to type a hyphen. I'm just being honest. And so I think making a URL as simple as possible, as clean as possible, with the minimal possibilities for misspellings or typos or potential alternate spellings, like Pride and Prejudice. You could have the A-N-D. You could have it with a dash, dash. I could see someone doing that. You could do it with an ampersand. You could do it with just an N. I could see like 9 different ways that people could potentially write that.
I don't think you can use an ampersand in a URL, can you?
Oh, you can't? Okay,
I don't think you can.
You're probably right. It's probably there's a limit to ASCII letters that can be used there. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm getting at is simplicity is good. I think minimization of character count is an important one. So if you can get it, I would guess somewhere under 15 characters. That's just a ballpark. Then that's probably better than something that's 35 characters. And then as far as hyphens and dashes and lines and underscores, I personally would avoid them. But Brad has built a beautiful career using one. So what do I know?
Well, there was a lot that went into that, and there was also kind of what was available, and then like after a little while, evilinc.com came available, and I think I snagged it. I think I use it somewhere around there. I didn't like it because the I and the L and the I all together there, the last part of evil and the first part of ink, it's hard to tell whether you've got it right, because all those blend together, right?
Oh, I will disagree. Wait, do you really own Evil Inc. or Evil?
I have to go back and check. I don't know whether I've got it or not, but I think I snagged it a while ago.
Although I'll be honest, Evil Inc. also has a potential for misspellings as well. Because are you saying Evil Inc. as in the inkwell, I-N-K? Are you saying Inc. as in the short version of Incorporated, which, by the way, is a shortening that not everyone is familiar with.
Right.
So that's a problem.
Did I ever tell you about that convention I went to? There is an Evil Inc. with an I-N-K. It's done by Coheed and Cambria, which is a hard, heavy metal rock band.
Sure.
And all week long, they were at the same convention that I was at. It was Evil Inc. INC, and across the hall was Evil Inc. INK. I kept getting his groupies at my table looking for Coheed or Cambria, one of the two, and being very disappointed with
Brad
the
Geiger
image that they were getting here. Yes, they were super upset. They wanted nothing to do with what they were seeing. It was a real pisser. But yeah, that there is that. So that's why I've had no problems with evil-inc.com. Over the years, I've picked up a whole bunch that I've used in different ways.
Right.
Some of which, in fact, on this show, I think you don't say, a lot of times you say like evilcomic.com or something like that. I've got a bunch that are set up just to be redirects that I use in one case or another when I'm having, because there's some that are just easier to say out loud. There's some that are easier to put it in different places, and some that I didn't want anybody else to have it. And for $12 a month, I just bought it and had it redirected.
Yeah, that's why I own bradisatotalstud.com. That because I didn't want anybody else to have that. I want that all to myself. So, but yeah, and also to the question that you might have asked or inferred but didn't ask in your question, why do I own SheldonComics.com plural and DriveComic singular.com? The answer is it was the art of the possible. Someone had taken drivecomics.com, and so I got drivecomic.com. Yeah. And then in the intervening years, I think DriveComic came available. Like Brad, I snapped it up. I have it as a redirect. If someone accidentally typos comics versus comic, I think I have that one. I also think I have the singular of SheldonComic.com. I believe I have that one too. And then a few years ago, Sheldon.com became available. And they reached out and they're like, hey, you got $1,000? And I was like, sure don't. See you later. Because at some point, I have enough SEO energy behind the existing URL that I don't, it's not a huge benefit to me to own Sheldon.com.
Yeah.
Although that is an infinitely better URL. There's no argument about that. The downside for me is that Sheldon also has an alternate name in English called Shelton. And I do have a tiny percentage of people that get that wrong, and they're like, "Oh, it's with a D," and I'm like, "All right, come on now." So you're always gonna find who's the genius in your audience, and your URL will sometimes be a giveaway. But I think the main thrust of Brad's point at the beginning of this is still true. Most people will find your website by linked energy rather than having to type it in. But for all the benefits and also, by the way, one thing we didn't mention, Brad, make it easy for yourself, because over the course of your career, you are going to type in that URL to 1,000 different sources. And I can't even emphasize how many times you're going to type that URL out in a billion different flyers that you're building in Illustrator, into posts on Instagram, into this and that. You're going to type that damn URL. Yeah, so don't make it a 48-character URL.
Yeah.
Find something under 15 characters or less, and make it simple on yourself. Don't you think?
Yeah, and the bottom line is to make it something that you can live with, like Dave said, but don't let your paralysis from analysis set in. At some point, come up with a domain name, make sure there's nothing hidden in it, and go with it. Because it's literally one of those things that, yes, you want to put some thought into. Yes, you want to make sure you spend a good, solid weekend kind of thinking about this. And then after you've made your decision, don't second guess yourself. Go forward, do the thing. It's never going to hold you back.
Right.
It's going to be just fine. Get back to making comics.
Especially if you accidentally stumble on a URL that really makes you laugh, like ComicLabCashGrab.com.
ComicLab Cash Grab is a keeper.
By the way, because we're going to use that for every damn thing we ever do Comic Lab from now on. I love that URL so much.
We're going to get our money's worth out of Comic Lab Cash Grab, I guarantee you. It's even, listen, I want you, if you're listening to this podcast.
That's the best $7 we've ever spent.
Oh, yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, just do me a favor. Say it out loud right now. It's even fun to say Comic Lab Cash Grab. It'll make you smile saying it out loud. It
sounds like a 70s game show thing. Like, all right, it's time for Comic Lab Cash Grab.
Hey, if you're listening while you work, take a minute and stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you get to support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And if you can't swing a pledge this month, no worries.
You can still support the show you love by rating us wherever you get podcasts.
Leave us a 5-star review and a few kind words.
That, along with social media mentions, is incredibly helpful.
And now, David, let's talk comics.
Well, Brad, before we go any further, we got to thank our friends over at Wacom at WACOM.com, the makers of the new Wacom One, sponsors of today's show. Brad and I, of course, have been using Wacoms for, the better part of a decade now.
Oh, yeah. Easily a better part of a decade.
Maybe almost, a decade, 10 to 12 years now. So it is a super appropriate sponsorship for the show, one we can wholeheartedly endorse. I now have God knows how many Wacoms in the studio between the two here and the one. I now have 3 Wacoms. So, Brad,
I've got you by one. I've got 4 of them. I've got 2 in my studio, 1 at my home studio, and 1 for travel.
Now it's just ridiculous. We're like, I'm using one to prop open this door. Like, why do we need this many Wacoms?
It is something to talk about because, I mean, 2 of those I've had for close to a decade now or more. And this is not a piece of equipment that you're going to buy and then it's going to be obsolete. You know how when you buy hardware, sometimes they like an iPhone, you know, every time at a certain point, you know, one of those updates all of a sudden your battery's going to start to drain or something. You know that there's planned obsolescence in some of these hardware that you buy. Mm-hmm. I've never experienced that with a Wacom product ever. I bought those things and I keep using them and using them and using them.
Yeah, my oldest Wacom, it was such a workhorse for me that even when I got the new one, I ended up giving it to a ComicLab listener here in Los Angeles.
That's right, you did.
And so, anyway, we're hugely thankful to the sponsors and friends over at Wacom at WACOM.com, the makers of the new Wacom One. And Brad, I got a topic I want to jump into next. You had brought this up in just a phone conversation this week.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be a fun one to bring onto the show. You had brought up the idea of people stressing about, am I a spammer?
Yeah.
Am I spamming people too much? Oh, God, I'm feeling anxious about this with my social media, with my blogging. Am I spamming too much? And so you had a really interesting line about direct versus indirect marketing.
Yeah.
So let's jump in on that.
So let's talk about that. As a matter of fact, today earlier, a true story, I saw somebody on Twitter saying, it's my birthday today, so here's my annual plug for my webcomic. And I thought, oh, sweetie. Oh, honey.
My annual plug?
My annual plug. And I wanted to take this guy by the hand and say, okay, we need to talk. This is
Brad,
not something you save for your birthday.
Imagine if you had a garden and you're like, well, it's time for their annual watering for those plants.
You go out there and you see the twigs sticking up from the dirt.
It's just Wile E. Coyote running through a desert. You're like, wait, what happened to my garden?
Boo. Yeah, it's just death. No, you can't. And in fact, thinking about it like in terms of a garden is a really good way to do it. But you see so many people who are so conflicted, so bound up about promoting themselves that they go way too far to one end. And it's because they're scared. In fact, you'll see people putting this out as part of their Patreon messaging. I see this all the time too. It drives me crazy. You saying, I don't want to spam my Patreon backers. My friends, you cannot spam a Patreon backer. They are paying to get content from you. You cannot give them too much of your content.
Yeah, by definition, that is what they want.
That's what they want. They signed up. They're paying money. They can't make it any more clear. This is like the girl that has a crush on you in junior high and you didn't get the hint yet, right? It's okay.
Wait, why are you directing this at me? That
I'm
hurts,
looking
Brad.
directly at you.
I want everybody to know he looked right at me in the camera. He didn't make that broad.
She brought you in the home-baked cookies for Valentine's Day, and you thought, oh, she just likes to bake.
Can I share a fun story about Gloria and I dating, actually? Yeah. Because this is how not a player Dave Kellett was. Glo and I had a whole summer where we dated, and we would have dates that would last like 10, 12 hours long, right? Mm-hmm. We would meet up at like 10 in the morning and we would go to the beach. We would hang out and talk in a car up on a hill overlooking San Diego. We would go to an In-N-Out restaurant or this or that. We literally 12-hour dates, right? Whole summer of this. And every time at the end of the date, I would do the hug with the slow pull away and not making any moves, Brad. I was the worst. I just had no game at all, like just so insecure and shy. And then finally, at the end of the summer, we're about to go to college. College, by the way. It's not like I was 14.
This is not fourth grade Dave.
Yeah,
this is
not
fully
fourth
grown
grade Dave. This is like, I'm an adult. I could have been sent to war at this point, right? And so, like, she looks up at me and she literally goes, are you going to lay one on me or not? And that was the end of the summer. Yeah. And I was like, I guess yes, I will. We'll kiss you.
And then you become like an order clerk taking an order. Okay, that'll be one extra large smooch. And do you want lip with that?
But thank God for her, because I never would have had the mojo to make a move. I was so, and I bring that up because among all cartoonists, let's just be honest with ourselves. We were all the shyer kid, or the kid that was a little more introspective. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't make waves, and that's kind of why we stayed drawing off to the side when everybody else was doing the school play or going to the school dance or whatever it was. Because every one of us, if we're honest about it, there was a part of us that was a little bit shyer or a little bit more, a little bit more insecure.
A little bit introspective.
Yeah, or introspective.
I mean, I know you for a long time, and I know how you're very, personal about that sort of thing. You probably blushed taking her to such an explicit restaurant as In-N-Out.
Oh, man, touche.
Boy, the subconscious workings of Dave Kellett's mind there. Would you like to go to In-N-Out again?
You know
and
what's
again?
and
again?
You know what's funny? My cheeks are hot just from that joke. God bless America. You're not wrong is the thing.
No,
You're
I know
not wrong.
I'm not. That's the sad part is I'm being absolutely honest.
I get nervous just riding horseback. I'm like, there's something about this feels wrong.
I've seen you close your eyes putting your pencil into the pencil sharpener.
I have to put my special glove on just so I'm not touching the pencil.
So because we're all in the same boat, and because I know a lot of you are conflicted about whether you're thinking, am I a spammer? It's actually very, very simple as to whether you're a spammer or not, and it can be lined up just like this. Are you using a direct line of communication or an indirect line of communication? A direct line of communication is, for example, an email. If you send somebody an email saying, hey, I've got a new book coming out, I'd like you to join me in my Kickstarter, right? If you send a person-to-person email, now we're gonna delineate a little bit because I know what you're thinking already. I send lots of emails. If you send directly to one person an email that says, I want you to join my Kickstarter, I want you to buy this book, I want you to do this thing, that's a direct line of communication. And you've got to be very careful with that because that's readily going to be accepted as a spam. Okay. Mm-hmm. Same thing for a direct message on social media. If you slide into the DMs on Twitter, or if you send somebody a direct message on Instagram and say, I've got this thing and I want you to participate. And by the way, even if it's a free thing, even if it's free, it's still spam because you're putting that other person on the spot. They might not want to, now they've got to say why they don't want to download your thing. And it's very uncomfortable, right? It puts somebody on the spot. A direct message puts somebody on the spot, whether you're asking for payment or not. You're putting the person on the spot, and nobody likes to be put in that situation, right? On the other hand, if it's an indirect message, you're not putting anybody on the spot because it's a message to everybody. You're saying on Twitter, here's my Patreon. You're saying on Instagram, I've got a Kickstarter coming out. You're saying on Facebook, you're not sending a direct message, you're sending an indirect message. And as long as you hearken back to Dr. Geiger's 4 C's, which are, Dave?
Oh God, I already forgot. I need that magnet.
Creation, curation, commercial, and kindness. I'm glad we made kindness canon now.
I have never been prouder.
As long as you're remembering the 4 C's and you're not just always churning away on commercial, you can hit that indirect communication channel very often, as long as it's part of a good mix. And you're never going to be looked at as a spammer. A direct message, you've got to be much more careful. It's a ticking time bomb. Now, I'm going to fast forward to what you're immediately going to say. Well, wait a minute, Brad, on ProTips, you've already told us when you do a Kickstarter, you should use that function that you send an email out to all the people that participated in your former Kickstarter to tell them that this new Kickstarter is there. Of course you do. That's the same thing as sending that in the same way that it's impossible for you to spam a Patreon backer. Those Kickstarter backers, I've actually done it. Speaking of, by the way, how do I know this? Because I actually screwed it up. One of my Kickstarters did a Kickstarter and got angry emails at some of the people from my previous Kickstarter because I didn't do this. And they said, how come you didn't tell us?
Right,
right. And here I am. Well, I didn't want to spam you. Well, you're talking to somebody who learned through doing it wrong. Think to yourself, is it an indirect or a direct message channel? If it's direct, be very, very careful. You probably shouldn't. If it's indirect, go crazy.
I also want to say, too, that don't underestimate how self-selecting a lot of social media audiences are, and especially Patreon audiences. And here's what I mean by that, is that we too often err to the fact that people will self-select out. And granted, that happens every day. Hundreds and thousands of people are self-selecting away from Dave Kellett, right? But there's a few, half dozen to a dozen to 2 dozen people every day, every week, every month that are selecting in like, oh, I like what this guy's doing.
Yes.
And because they're doing a balanced 4 C's of social media, I appreciate that they're sharing other people's comics or offering a little bit of a lift for my day or sharing their art, that I don't mind that there is an occasional commercial from them, because frankly, I would like to get a book from that Dave Kellett guy, or I would like to see what magnet he offers at ComicLab right?
Of course.
So they appreciate that there's a balance. And what I'm saying is, don't underestimate that they are self-selecting in to what you have to offer. And that includes your books, your posters, your website, all the stuff that you're doing, because they like you and they would like to have a little bit more of you in their life. And so keep that in mind, that these are people that have actively chosen to follow you, to get more of you.
They've opted in. And, and chances are on social media, they're not getting every little thing that you send out. So it's going to be really difficult for you to be a spammer to that person. That's the other. I mean, it's frustrating on social media that they don't get every message. I get that. I also happen to think it's a good thing. But it's you can't become a spammer to that person, because chances are they're not getting everything that you put out.
And I will tell you that the time that I feel a spammer the most is when I'm doing a Kickstarter, because I just got done as you guys know, a few weeks ago, doing a Kickstarter, and it's 30 days of promotional, like bang, bang, bang the drum. Hey guys, I'm doing a Kickstarter, that kind of stuff, right? And you by the end, you dislike yourself and you dislike the URL that you've been mentioning for 30 days, and you dislike your project. You're like, I just want it to be done.
Yeah.
And Brad knows, because I forwarded him the emails.
Yes.
Literally within the hour of that Kickstarter ending, I got 2 or 3 emails of people going, oh my gosh, I'm just seeing this. How did I not hear about this over 30 days?
Yes.
And what that tells me is what Brad was just mentioning, is that you think you are the worst spammer in the world. You hate yourself because you're mentioning your Kickstarter. There's a big chunk of your audience that didn't notice, didn't hear it, didn't see any of it.
Yep.
Only found out about it an hour too late. Now and you're like, what? I was hating myself because I thought I was spamming. Meanwhile, the world's like, this is fine. I barely heard any of this. So that's that kind of thing.
And they're okay with it. So Dave, speaking of questions, you wanted to be a question asker for this episode. You had a question you wanted to ask our listeners.
Oh, I did. You know what? So this came up with 2 or 3 different people recently. We had the really fun one, Brad, that remember the saddle designer and saddle maker who had written in about designing saddles. And then we also had an interior designer listener of the Comic Lab show. And there was a third person. What were they doing? Oh, they were doing like architecture, but a specific kind of architecture with bridges. Anyway, long story short, it got me thinking that, God, how fun is it that these very disparate and different art forms are coming to Comic Lab and finding what we're talking about in terms of living a creative life, making a living from it, keeping a balanced attitude of joy and work in there. They're finding it helpful in their art. So I just wanted to ask people, and this is everyone, including you as a listener, what if you are not in comics, just out of curiosity, what is your creative field?
Yeah.
I would like to know, we would like to know what your creative field is. It's kind of fun to see what's helpful and what advice is broadly applicable to your creative field. So you could either, I think you can reach out to us on Twitter. That's a fun one, over at Comic Lab Podcast with the @ on Twitter. You can email Brad and I. Mine's dave@davekellett.com, or you can email Brad. I forget what his is at the moment.
bradgeiger@gmail.com.
Or another ways are, if you happen to be a Patreon backer, you can obviously go onto the Discord server or on the private Patreon forums there under the posts. But I would love to hear. This is just a personal thing. It's I would love to hear what you're doing. What's your creative life filled by that's not comics. It's kind of fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we'll do a section on the show where we go through some of the best ones, some of the most interesting ones. And
you can do to Brad's point, you can do a 1 or 2 sentence description of how it's helpful or why it's helpful, because it would be fun to hear what's applicable in different fields. Because, by the way, this is something Brad and I have long advocated for ever since we were doing Webcomics Weekly. As a creative who is working online and also making physical objects that you will sell online and at Comic-Cons, do not limit what you keep your eye on to just comic makers and comics creators and comics artists. you want to keep in mind what's going on over at Etsy. You want to keep in mind what's going on eBay, what sculptors are doing online, what painters are doing online. What clothing designers are doing online, how are they structuring their websites? Because so many times, frankly, more than I could count, Brad and I have seen something in a very different field of art, but they're doing it online. They're like, holy shit, that's a good idea. I'm going to apply that to comics.
Yeah.
So it's part of our larger spectrum of keeping your head on a swivel is what can I learn from painters, from sculptors, from clothing designers, from interior designers?
Yes.
And so in this regard, it's kind of fun to hear the reverse. What are those art fields learning from comics in terms of what listening to ComicLab? So do write in, let us know. We'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. Dave, I've got a question for you now.
Okay.
Speaking of questions, and that is, we've gotten to the point in our careers that we're full-time cartoonists. We are doing we're putting an awful lot of time in at the drawing board week in and week out. My question is, do you ever draw for fun? Or even because I know what the answer is for me, and the answer is no. If not, do you think you ever will draw for fun again?
Oh my God, this is a great question because I have actually been thinking about this, and I don't know why the pandemic has focused this question for me. Maybe because I'm just looking for joy, but yeah, I have been thinking lately that there was a moment a week or two ago where I just wanted to draw something silly. It was but it was going to take me like 4 or 5 hours to draw it well, but I knew I had a very clear image in my mind of what I wanted to draw, and I thought to myself, it's actually irresponsible to spend those 5 hours drawing this thing.
Yeah.
I have so many to-dos on my list of either projects that I need to finish, Kickstarter stuff that I need to fulfill, future projects that I need to start planning on, comics for the day that I need to draw, that it felt irresponsible, Brad, to take the 5 hours to draw purely for fun. And so it's funny that you asked that because I'm very much in the space of like, I don't know when I will next get to draw just for fun.
Yeah.
Because on the times, Glow and I, my wife and I are not great at taking vacations, but when we have, I always bring, I don't know if this is you, I always bring all these art supplies. Oh, look at all the gouaches that I have, Brad. Look at all the watercolor papers that I have, Brad.
You'll never find another guy with as much gouache as me.
Look at all this gouache that this guy brought on this flight. And then I'm at the pool with a Mai Tai in my hand, and I go, guess what I'm not doing for any of these 4 days? I'm not drawing a damn thing.
Yeah.
I'm sitting by this pool. And so I don't end up drawing on a vacation, even though I have the highest hopes there. So let me ask you, do you draw for fun ever? Do you ever get the chance to draw for fun?
Not even a little bit. And I don't have as much angst over it as you do, because I when I do draw for my comic, I am kind of drawing for fun. I'm really enjoying the challenge. I'm really enjoying the procedure and the process and everything. I get a great deal of joy out of that.
Yes.
To the extent that the idea of drawing something just for the hell of it isn't as tempting for me as it might be, because I have so much fun drawing when it has a purpose.
Right.
And it's really to the point that I in as much as I enjoy that, when I'm on vacation, I very much enjoy not drawing. I very much enjoy doing something completely different, or even sometimes doing nothing at all, or going to a museum or something like that. There's other ways that you can feed your creativity other than that overt act of drawing.
Right.
To the extent that, like, if I go on a week vacation, my biggest problem is when I come back, I've got to remember how to draw again.
Yeah, there is that, isn't there? Where your hand is like,
it's like, I don't know what I've completely forgot how to make a line on an image.
Oh, the pointy end. That's right.
Yes. But no, I don't have as much angst over that as I think you do. I just I don't know. It doesn't bother me as much, because I do enjoy drawing when I'm drawing the comic.
I mean, yeah, on some level, you're right that this complaint is a little bit, oh, poor little rich boy, like he has all these Porsches to draw, but he really wishes he could drive that motorcycle, like.
I'm
And
going to
so,
disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you. It's not a poor little rich boy is. What's actually happening inside the mind of Dave Kellett
okay.
is, and this might be a social media thing as well. Remember how we keep talking about comparing one person's highlight reel to the other person's, demo tape. In other words, you're comparing yourself to all these other people. I think you're actually feeling guilt over not drawing more and you're thinking, well, if I draw for a living and it brings me joy, which I know it does. I mean, when I say I enjoy drawing Evil Inc., it's not to say that you don't enjoy drawing Sheldon, because I know that's the case. But you're feeling guilty over the fact that you're getting paid to draw Sheldon, and you started doing Sheldon when it was pure joy. And so now you feel guilty, and the only way you can try to assuage that guilt is to draw for pure joy again. But at the end of the day, you don't really want to.
So there might be some truth to that, yes, but I think you also, on the route to getting that conclusion, I think you also hit another possibility that's actually very true now that you have mentioned it, which is I am seeing other people's highlight reels of all these Instagram stories of other people sketching for fun. Or look at this just fun ink exploratory drawing that I did just for giggles, right? And I think, Brad, in my mind, I'm like, look at all these people drawing just for fun. Gosh darn it, I want to do that too.
I should be doing that too.
But maybe if I look at it from the flip side, it's because they don't have a project at the moment. You know what I mean?
Nothing else to do.
Like they're doing a lot of this free sketching. Boy, that sure is fun, but it's because they're not working on anything. And that's why they're doing a lot of free sketching.
And that's the worst. By the way, if you're listening to me, it's the worst thing you can do to younger creators is put something up that clearly, and I'm saying clearly, took you hours to do, and say, here's a fun little sketch I just whipped out in a few minutes.
A quick study that I whipped out.
Here's a little doodle that I doodled out on the back. Listen, we all take a look at that image. We know that it took you hours to do. It's a scale representation of the Sistine Chapel. It's the nastiest. It's cruel. It's malevolent to younger creators for you to put that up on social media and say, here's a little sketch. We both know what a sketch is. A sketch is in pencil. It's got the wrong proportions. It's got the eye way out of place. That's a sketch. What you just did is a finished illustration. And for you to call it a doodle is mean to younger creators because they don't know enough to say, look at that and tell you that you're full of shit.
Don't you think, though, that in itself is a form of self-defense mechanism? Because this is a drawing that artists have worked really hard on, but they don't really want to be judged on it. So they go, oh, it's just, something that I threw together. It's just a sketch.
Just a little something I whipped up.
A little something. Oh, God, please like me.
Happened to stumble near the pencil.
So, here's the thing. I recognize, Brad, that like you, I have lucked out. No, not lucked out. I hard work. I got a career where the thing that I love to do is what I get to do every day. I get to draw for a living. I physically, not just emotionally, physically enjoy drawing Sheldon pen and ink on paper. I physically enjoy drawing digitally Drive on a Wacom. It's fun to me. Like, that is a fun process. It's the best part of my day. And so... yeah, I mean, part of it is I have built a career that lets me do the thing that I truly get joy from.
Right.
And so, yes, that's enough, I think. And it's just hard because sometimes I want to be back at 18, no responsibilities. Whatever I draw is whatever I draw.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that 18-year-old got to his end goal, which was to have a career where he could do that all the time,
that 18-year-old wanted nothing more than to be you.
Yeah. And to be smooched. And
now that he's got it, you want 18 again.
Let's be honest.
Life.
He wanted to be able to smooch Gloria, and he wanted to be able to draw comics all day.
Oh my God. I was the same way. I wanted to draw comics all day and smooch Gloria.
I was wondering if that was the joke you were going to do.
Yeah, of course it was.
And you did it. I walked right into that. Walked right into that.
So now listen. Dave, we've got time just at the end of the show. I think we can sneak in a Patreon question, one more. What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right. So Mark wrote in, and Mark's got a great question. He says, as I understand, you both have assistants, but for the sake of comparison, let's assume that all tasks are being completed by one person. What percentage of your day would you see yourself spending with pencil in hand, drawing, writing, making the thing? And what percentage would you spend on all the other business tasks? Admin, formatting, uploading, conventions. I imagine the illusion from outsiders is that cartoonists spend their entire day drawing. That's why I chose this one, Dave. It fits right into what we're talking about.
Yeah, it kind of does.
But I guess I've never really heard what kind of split people have in the current webcomic landscape. Interested to hear your thoughts. Dave Callett, having just shared what you shared, in terms of time management, and I don't want to say a day because, man, our days are really different, but let's break it down over a week. Tell us how the breakdown in time management tends to happen.
Well, before I do that, can I say, as a kid who very much loved comics and read every kind of book about comics, from Mort Walker's Encyclopedia of Comicana to Your Career in the Comics by Lee Nordling. Remember when that one came out in the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
I would devour all of those because I was desperate to see what the life of a cartoonist was. Not just how to do it, but like, how were they living? What were they doing? So I get this question because, gosh, did younger me want to know how they structured their days? And it was so funny to hear the model that came in my mind at a certain age, because every cartoonist would talk about it, would be Mort Walker finishing Beetle Bailey for the day and then immediately golfing. And for me, somehow that triggered in my young mind, like, oh, that's the life of a cartoonist. By the way, I never wanted to play golf. I hate golf. I don't like golf. I'm shitty at golf. I don't like walking all that much. I don't like talking with these same four people. I don't want to golf. But something about that.
I would have been a great golfer if I didn't have to go out with 3 other people. Once I found out if I wanted to golf alone, I had to get put in with a foursome. I said, I'm out. Take your mashy niblick and...
Well, the thing that pisses me off anytime God forbid, I'm enjoying a round of golf on the 3 occasions I've ever golfed in my life, because as soon as I'm enjoying golf, Brad, this is what I feel. Oh, that group behind us really is coming up fast. Oh, we got to go faster.
My God.
Oh, we got to speed this along. That group behind us is really... It's like, I hate a sport where I have to be rushed by like some librarian behind me going, sir, are you done with that book? Sir, are you done with that book? Let's put that back on the shelf, sir. Like, that's not fun.
No. It's all the things that is not fun, you know?
Like, imagine bowling where someone's waiting behind you so that they get to bowl. You're like, I just want to bowl. Leave me alone.
I just want to try and hit the pins. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how we got on golf, but
well, that was Mort Walker's life, but it's not Dave Kellett's life.
No, it's not Dave Kellett's life, and so it is. I want to say, Mark, that this is a very applicable question because we have all built and one of the advantages too, Brad, I should mention this, in having done the documentary Stripped with Fred Schroeder for 4 years, is we traveled around America and Canada. And we interviewed 70 cartoonists, many of which were in their studios.
Yeah.
And one of the advantages that gave me is that I got to see that, although I think it would be the case, no 2 cartoonists' career are alike.
No.
And some of them are drastically different how they work, right?
Yeah.
Like Mel Lazarus and others would have this intricately built desk where everything was hung perfectly around it. Like, here's my T-square, here's my ellipses maker, here's, all the different stuff that they physically needed to make a cartoon. Yeah. Jim Davis, for God's sakes, had a fireplace on a remote control so he could start drawing Garfield and go, "Pachoo, boom," and the fireplace would start up, right? And that was bitchin' Camaro. And I got to sit in Charles Schultz's drawing desk, and that was awesome. Yeah. And you could see the scratch marks over the years of that. What I'm getting at is they all had their unique, different life. And it was so different, each one of them. And so I will tell you my answer, Mark, and hopefully this is helpful, but keep in mind, my answer is markedly different from Brad's. Brad's is markedly different from every other cartoonist you want to hear. So as far as the breakdown, I think, honestly speaking, I probably do about 25-30% of my work week is actually drawing, is actually physically drawing the strip. Now, there's probably another 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of week. That's an unfortunate metric that I went from 30% to hours. So let's do this. Yeah. Let's divide a 40-hour week up, and we'll do it this way. I probably spend 8 or so hours of a 40-hour week physically drawing. I probably spend another 3, 4, 5 hours of the week physically writing. I'm either sitting in a chair, staring at a wall, which is part of the writing process, or I'm actively scribbling in my notebook, right? And then separate from that, there's probably another hour or 2, which can only be described as administrative comic finish work.
Yep.
It's either coloring or prepping the file or noodling with stuff that I drew in analog that now I'm digitally fiddling with. And then I think 2/3 to a half, the rest is admin, which I include to be social media, prepping the site, prepping the next projects, prepping the books, that kind of thing. So that's my rough breakdown.
Yeah.
Roughly speaking, it's probably 1/3 to just under a half is drawing, and the rest is admin. Brad, how about you?
If I had to break it down, I would say let's say you've got 5 days during the week that you've got that you're working, and a lot of times I spend a little time on the weekends too, more than a little bit of time on Saturdays, quite a bit. But if you had to break it down, the first thing I've got to do is go back to the original question. I don't have an assistant anymore. We talked about having assistants on the show a while ago. I found out that really doesn't work for me. Number one, I don't like having anybody in my studio. I don't like anybody being in my space.
Between this and the golf, we are learning that Brad Geiger is a misanthrope to the ninth degree.
Yes. I really did not like having somebody in my space, which is the truth.
Really, for Brad Geiger, hell is other people, isn't it?
Yes. Oh. You don't know how true that is. So then what? The next assistant that I had was a virtual assistant, somebody that did that never came in, but was only doing social media. And what finally started happening there, it was social media and a few jobs. And what happened over and over and over is I would look at the work and I'd say, you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. It was it was never the way I could only trust an assistant to do very rote things.
Right.
Like right now, what I need to do is something that I brought up on ProTips last week, which is to make like a video introduction of my comic, like something that somebody could play and get an introduction to Evil Inc., the concept, the major storylines, the players in a video.
Yep.
I need to do that. That's going to take some time that I don't have to put into it. I'd love to give that to an assistant. I know it would never be right.
Right.
It would. They wouldn't. And part of it is like, okay, you've got to be an Evil Inc. fan. You've got to be an Evil Inc. reader. You got to know all the lore, all the backstory. You got to know all this stuff to be able to even do something like that, because I need to hand off the entire project. I don't have time to write this. I don't have time to pull the images for it.
Right.
I can't. What assistant am I going to give that to? There's nobody. There's nobody I can give it to. And it kept. So that's the stuff I really need done. Nobody's going to be step in and do that. The other stuff, that the mid-level stuff, was always lacking. I would look at it and I'd be like, this is horrible. This person that either has no aesthetic or didn't apply any time. It wasn't right. And then there was just the rote stuff. And in some cases, like I had somebody putting together stuff for my Vertical Scroll ebook. That person did great, and I just basically ran out of projects for a little while for that person. But stuff like social media, the problem there was, he was posting and posting and posting and posting and posting. Instagram, Twitter, this and that. It wasn't getting engagement.
Wasn't moving the needle.
It wasn't generating a heartbeat. And finally, I got to a certain point where I'm like, you know what? We're just not going to do this anymore. I was posting every day on Instagram. Dave, I've got 1,600 followers on Instagram. It's just whatever I'm doing, Instagram don't want. I can take a hint, Instagram. I get it. You don't want Geiger. You don't have to worry about it anymore. So I don't use an assistant because it just wasn't working for me.
Right.
And the stuff that they were able to do wasn't important in the long run. So I got rid of that. The end result is, I think I spend way more time these days writing than I do anything else. And I think that's a good thing. I when I look back on my work, I think that there's the biggest improvements I've had is when I really concentrated more on writing than anything else. So I do where it would have been skewed towards drawing before. Now it's maybe, if you took a 5-day week, let's call it 5.5 day to be fair to the time I'm putting in, I'd say 2 days writing, 2 days illustrating, 1 day for administrating and social media and all the other things that pop up. And we'll call that a day and a half for administration and taxes and doing this to the website and all that other stuff that you've got to do. We'll call that a day and a half. So 2 days writing, 2 days drawing, day and a half for admin is probably pretty accurate if you boiled it right down.
Yeah. It's funny that you should mention the 5.5 day workday, because I think that I actually have probably about a 5.5 day work week. And I think that's accurate. And I will be honest, I don't hate it.
No.
Because I know that there's a big argument, and I should be following it, that like put the pen down at 5 o'clock on Friday and go enjoy the weekend with the family, right? And I do, but there are times where on the weekend, the family is like, I'd rather watch Pokemon, and so I'm like, all right, I'll go draw for a little bit. That's fine. I'll get some work done, and I don't hate it. Like and also sometimes when the kids go to bed on a Saturday night, if we were watching a movie and Glow falls asleep, I'm like, you know what? I'll go down to the studio and work a little bit. That's fine. Yeah. I'm actually happy doing that. So
yeah, it's kind of like a nice little moment that you can steal for yourself.
Exactly. You steal the moment for yourself. Yeah. So it does often stretch into about 5.5 days a week. And like you, I think it's about 2 days drawing, and then maybe another day writing, and then about 3 or 2.5 days of admin. Yeah, I think that's probably a smart breakdown.
I will say this. And it just, if you wonder about how sometimes that breaks down, I will say this: how many times have you made it to the end of the day and realized that you haven't done any writing or drawing?
Oh, that happened to me last week for whatever reason.
Yeah.
A big chunk of my days, many days in the last week was admin, and it was a bummer. It bums me out. I have to mention that I've tried to be kind to myself during this pandemic, because I'm also wearing a lot more hats than I would normally wear as a parent. In terms of educating my kids during the day at the same time that I'm also trying to get this done. So this moment is a particularly bad moment, Mark, for me to capture my quote-unquote average work week, because life is weird as hell right now. Yeah. And so I'm also taking care of my slightly older in-laws who are, you're just trying to keep them safe in a pandemic. And so anyway, there's a lot of tasks that are falling to me and to my wife, and so we're doing our best. And so my work week is not my normal work week, and I normally would not work late at night anymore like I did in my 20s, but that's starting to happen a little bit again, because I'm trying to have to balance it out, the school day with my day, and it's fine. It is what it is. But it's funny, though, Mark, that you had mentioned the sort of idealized life of the cartoonist, because that doesn't largely exist anymore, with a few exceptions. Penny Arcade has, depending on when you capture them in their history, they have 5 to 15 employees. Matt Inman with Oatmeal has a half dozen employees with his gaming company and stuff like that. But really, we're never again going to have, I think, the 65 to 100 employees that Paws at Garfield had in Indiana. And we're never going to have the 24 employees that Schultz had up in Santa Rosa at his place. But so the reason why they could live that quote unquote cartoonist lifestyle of like, I just draw the comic and write the comic and then go golf, is because when you've got 65 to 100 employees, you can do that, Right. But I will say this, Brad, I will say this, and this was actually a lesson that I learned early on from David Malky, is to find joy in the admin parts of comics, because it actually is a break from the creativity. And sometimes it's nice to have the rote task or the administrative task that doesn't require left brain, right. You can switch from left brain to right brain thinking and vice versa. And I actually find that quite helpful in my work week.
Yeah. No, it's nice. It's nice to have like a honey-do list for yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Because what happens is sometimes when I'm just absolutely at the end of my rope creatively and I can't get my brain to kick in, it's good to have that list to say, oh, I need to do, I need to update my email newsletter list, or I need to do some tasks that are admin on the website. I need to do this or that. It's going to take a few minutes, but it's just this kind of thing that needs to be done, bop, 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 and you don't even have to be hardly conscious to do it. Those are good to have every now and again. And I do recommend making like a list of that, because when you're in that moment, you can't think real good. And it's like, I know I need to be doing things, but I don't know what those things are. Have a list for yourself.
and as much as I was joking before about how Brad's a misanthrope, I'm a misanthrope too, in the sense that like I don't know that I would want that Mort Walker lifestyle where I pass it off and everybody else does the work.
Yeah.
Because I trust myself to a high degree, much higher than I would other people. Thank God with Beth, I found an assistant who's incredibly talented and incredibly well trained, who loves comics and gets, on an intuitive level, how to approach the art form. But the thing is for me is that for so many of my assistants in the past, it was ultimately I would end up doing the task because it's like, trust me more. I'll just, it's like I would hand them the task and then immediately pull it back. So like, I'll just do it. That's fine.
I'll just do it.
Yeah. So there is that aspect to myself as well as a creator in that, I like doing it and I trust myself doing it all. And so I don't mind the admin side of things. So Mark, I hope that answers your question. I think it does.
And now that we've answered that question, we can ask this question. Do you know what you've been listening to? You've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my pal who listened to my Pokemon song and became my friend, my pal Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evil-comic.com.
Get that hyphen in there. It's not a dash, not an underscore, it's a hyphen.
Not an M dash.
Not an M dash. And my good friend, Dave Kellett, co-director of Stripped and cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and
Plural.
Drive at drivecomic.com.
Singular. And the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. I highly recommend it. Amazing music. And this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love Comic Lab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode like this one. This one comes in from Kay Rose. I believe Kay posted this on Twitter. Kay said, "Let me once again recommend Comic Lab podcast to all the artists out there. I finished the latest episode today, and I just appreciate this podcast so much. Thank you for having an episode on mental health and continuing to normalize the conversation in the art world. We need more podcasts like this." And that obviously she was talking about the show with Erica Moen we had on a few weeks ago. We've been getting nothing but wonderful remarks saying how good Erica was on that show, how wonderful it was that she shared that story, gave a lot of people some interesting thought. A lot of people walked away saying, you know what, I didn't think that podcast episode would have anything for me. And halfway through, I realized they were talking directly to me.
Yeah,
it's
true.
So we've got nothing but love for Erica Moen. People have been messaging us nigh on to constantly about how good she was. So thank you so much for that.
And that kind words were especially appreciated because we were so appreciative of Erica coming on. So thank you for saying that.
Yes,
and I will say Comic Lab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/comiclab. So we'll go ahead and say that twice. comiclabcashgrab.com.
That's wonderful. So, Dave, when you finally did get around to laying the lip lock on her, was it a good kiss? Did you
laying the lip lock?
That's
quite a way to say it. Laying the lip lock. That sounds like a carpenter. All right, so we're gonna have to put the lay the lip lock around the edge here, and then we'll put the drywall up. But you got to lay the lip lock down
now you
first.
Take a look at over there. That's a metric lip lock. We've got that from Canada. You're gonna have to make the adjustment there.
Yeah, too many people don't make the adjustment for the metric lip lock. Anyway, when Gloria's like, finally, are you going to lay one on me? Brad, I will be honest, so many things had to go right, none of which were my doing, that I was able to eventually marry my wife.
Yeah.
I don't know that I was a good kisser to begin with.
Did she actually have to like grab your head and tilt it to one direction so you wouldn't just crash into her nose?
Just take my lips off of her eye socket because I missed. It just missed entirely. I just went in with my eyes closed, but with the lips puckered like a 1930s animated comic.
I've just got this scene of Dave, leaning in, and Gloria, like one of those people down there when the airplane comes into the terminal with the big lights, waving you in. Bring it in, bring it a little bit to the left. You know, she's waving. She's doing semaphore with flags.
Semaphore. Oh my God, what a great word. Good diction on your part.
Yeah,
Semaphore.
by God, I brought
That's a good word. I haven't thought of that word in forever. Anyway, I don't know that I was good at any of that, but thank God for her, and thank God for her willingness to tolerate my inability to be at all a good romantic person at first. She warmed me up, and I got there. I'm great now, but oh God, little 18-year-old me, who knows? Just a nerd lost in the wilderness,
and
Brad.
Can you imagine what's going through Gloria's head when you finally kissed her? She's saying, "Oh, thank God, no more 12-hour beach dates."
Oh my God, he talks so much.
Oh my God, I thought he'd never shut up.
I can't talk about the Pokemon theme song anymore. Just kiss me. For God's sakes, just kiss me.
Maybe that's why she wanted you just to stop talking.
Stop talking.
Just kiss me, and then I won't have to listen to this anymore.
I can't take it anymore. I don't care about the Transformers.
If he's
just
kissing
stop
me,
talking.
I don't have to hear about the Pokemons.